Hello, dear story listeners. I invite you to continue listening to the story of the evil tycoon's little wife. Author Nguyen Ngoc Cinnamon. Chapter 7. Moc Nhien Nhi. The next day, he went to work early as usual. Moc Nhien went to the orphanage to play with the children. She saw them happily playing like that and felt very happy. The children living in the orphanage were so happy, more than her parents, but every day passed by very difficult. They see her as a puppet, a commodity, a substitute. There is no one more pathetic than her. Because playing with the children was so much fun, it wasn't until evening that she remembered she had to leave. Moc Nhien quickly took a taxi to Han Thien Lan's villa. From outside she felt a chill, as if something very scary was happening inside. Where is she? Han Thien Lan sat on the sofa and spoke in a cold voice. His body was emitting a dangerous smell. Moc Nhien went into the house. The housekeeper came to her. Tiu Nhien. Why are you home so late? Grandchildren. When Han Thien Lan saw her, he coldly shouted, "Who let you step out the door? Do you think this is your house? If you want to go, then go. If you come back, then come back. You should remember that you are just a substitute." "I never forgot that," Moc Nhien said. "Even if she dies, she will not forget what he said." He crossed his legs and looked at the people kneeling on the ground. "Who opened the door for her?" "It's me, I opened it myself, it has nothing to do with them," Moc Nhien said. Han Thien Lan laughed coldly. "I'll ask again. If you don't answer, don't blame me." The maids looked at each other, afraid. Everyone knew the young master's temperament. If he lied, it would definitely be even worse. "It's me, she's the one who opened the door," one person said. Ami quickly bowed her head. "Young master, I was wrong, because the lady also went out yesterday, so I thought." "Did she go out yesterday too?" he asked. Ami nodded. "Yes." "Who opened the door for her yesterday?" The butler stepped forward. "Young master, it's me." He pulled out a shotgun from behind and aimed it at Ami's head. "Dang!" Ami screamed and then lay down on the ground. Everyone looked at each other in fear. Moc Nhien covered her ears. "You're crazy." The housekeeper closed her eyes and waited for her face to come to her. Moc Nhien ran to hug her. "Yesterday I opened it myself." He stood up and placed the tip of the gun right at her temple. "From now on, if you take half a step out the door, don't blame yourself for not being able to keep these legs. And you, just this once, don't do the wrong thing because of her." The housekeeper is someone who has worked at his house for a long time. He more or less respects her, and cannot kill her like Ami. Han Thien Lan said to the two bodyguards outside the door, "Clean up this place, do a clean job." Having said that, he went upstairs, followed by the woman he had just brought home. Her name was Moc Nhien Nhi. Her appearance is both effeminate and lustful, and when she watches the play, she laughs happily. "Lan, where will you sleep tonight?" she swayed and asked. Han Thien Lan turned around and aimed the gun at her throat. "Call me Mr. Han." "Han. General Han." Moc Nhien Nhi stammered. He put away the gun. His name was called only by Deep Van. Everyone went into the room to rest. She sat there absent-mindedly watching Ami being dragged away. It turned out that Han Thien Lan considered people's lives like trash and was not afraid of being punished by the law. Moc Nhien went up to her room. When passing by his room, she heard the moans of a man and a woman. "Ah, stronger, stronger." Moc Nhien Nhi clamped his hips tightly, breathing heavily. He still didn't say anything. His strong masculine breath spread out. He went in and out like a storm, without the slightest bit of love or regret. Moc Nhien remembered last night and her heart was filled with fear. She walked past his room. But it was too late. He saw her. Han Thien Lan stopped moving. He looked at Moc Nhien Nhi with disgust. "Get out." Moc Nhien Nhi was immersed in pleasure when she caught his eyes and quickly walked out. Deep Moc Nhien quickly went back to her room. Han Thien Lan saw that and ran out to pull her into the room. Let go. Let me go. I didn't mean it. She screamed, trying to get away from him. Han Thien Lan threw her on the bed. What? Seeing the person you love having sex with someone else, does it hurt you? Now do you know how much your sister suffers, Deep Moc Nhien? Don't you ever say that. You clearly don't love her. If you loved her you would have gone to find her, you would have let me go. You wouldn't have touched another woman. He raised his hand and squeezed her chin. Do you have the right to doubt my feelings for Moc Van? He threw her down, his hands holding her wrists tightly. Oh Deep Moc Nhien, it's Deep Moc Nhien, a despicable person with an evil heart like you. But God gave you such a face, such a voice and such eyes. Then he bent his head down and kissed her lips. Moc Nhien struggled away from his kiss and she bit his tongue hard. The pain made him frown, but he still didn't let her go and kissed her more intensely. The taste of blood appeared in his mouth but he didn't care. Moc Nhien shed tears in despair. She was so afraid of this man. Chapter 8. Effects of spring medicine. Moc Nhien moved away from him. I beg you, please let me go. Her voice was sobbing and weak. Shut up, I told you never to use this tone of voice to talk to me. Don't try to show that you're weak. Do you know how much you're worth? Your father asked me for 5,000, while you even have money to serve me. Even though you look despicable, it's still very valuable. Moc Nhien smiled bitterly. Do you just see me as a commodity? Or just a substitute? Both. A vile person like you has many uses. Moc Nhien struggled. Can you let me go? Don't dream. You are now mine. Don't talk about asking me to do anything. Moc Nhien closed her eyes in despair. Do it faster. I'm tired and want to go to sleep. Han Thien Lan looked at her with cold eyes, his hand squeezed her chin, he gritted his teeth and said, I don't want this to be so boring. He walked towards the wine cabinet and took out a small white bottle of medicine. While Moc Nhien was lying still on the bed, he pulled her hair back. Her head tilted back, her eyebrows furrowed in pain. Drink a little. This game will be very interesting, he said sinisterly. Moc Nhien held his hand tightly to stop him. But her strength was not as strong as his. The medicine he was holding just drifted into her stomach. At the corner of her eye, a tear rolled down. She would endure it, and when her sister returned, she would be able to leave him. Han Thien Lan threw the medicine box on the floor and leisurely went to the bathroom. He showered with cold water, then wrapped a towel and went out. Moc Nhien lay silently for a few minutes when her body suddenly felt hot. Blood flowed back. Her eyes were covered with a layer of mist. She writhed uncomfortably. She unconsciously moaned. Han Thien Lan smiled and went to the wine cabinet. He took a bottle of wine and poured it into a glass. Looking at the man sitting in the chair sipping a glass of wine, she suddenly felt a craving. Now that Moc Nhien had completely lost her reason, she weakly got out of bed and walked towards him. Han Thien Lan smiled at her. Moc Nhien lazily jumped into his chest, her hands unconsciously touching each of his chest muscles. She felt uncomfortable, her bottom was wet and itchy. Han Thien Lan looked at her actions and smiled contemptuously. Look how lewd you are now. He pushed her away. Moc Nhien just landed. She regretted the warmth from his body. Please, don't go. Han Thien Lan took out a video camera and placed it next to the large TV. Next, he walked towards her and placed his hand on her plump peach blossom. Moc Nhien moaned comfortably. Han Thien Lan tore her dress apart, quickly, swiping each piece of fabric and falling all over the floor. Now she was naked. Placing one hand on her peach blossom. I'm so uncomfortable. He bent down and gently sucked the tip of her already erect, dark red peach blossom. Moc Nhien happily hugged his head. So comfortable. Han Thien Lan smiled coldly. It's despicable and still lewd. He put down the towel, placed the hard and warm object in front of her soft place, and gently rubbed the outside of her clitoris. Moc Nhien moaned. The desire in her body increased. This spring medicine clearly had a great effect. She clung to his hand. Please, come inside. Moc Nhien whispered. This is what he wanted, she begged him. Without warning he lifted her leg and placed it on his shoulder and entered forcefully. There was no foreplay, the acupuncture point still had not adapted to him. Has vigorously attacked. Moc Nhien frowned in pain and shook her head. It hurts so much. Please. Please get out. Hoo. It hurts so much. But no matter how much she cried and begged, he still attacked, causing Moc Nhien to faint in pain. But he still didn't stop, because her insides were too warm and too tight, completely draining his reason. After passing out for a while, Moc Nhien gradually woke up. He was still inside her, moving in and out like a storm. Losing the feeling of pain, she gradually sank into pleasure. Light. She moaned comfortably, not knowing how much she was willing to let go of the spring medicine. He turned around and lay down so she could get on top. The boy inside her rotated around, making him so happy that he almost shot. He reached out to squeeze both sides of her breasts. Moc Nhien writhed uncomfortably on his body. Finally, when it was morning, he stopped and shot his warm fluid straight into her. Moc Nhien was tired and fell asleep. He took out the condom and went into the bathroom. When he came out, he was dressed properly. Then he took a bottle of pills and put it in front of her mouth. Even though she was falling asleep, he still squeezed her chin and gave the pills. The birth control pill went into her mouth. Han Thien Lan held a bottle of wine and poured it into her mouth to let the pills float down. 2 hours later, the sky was bright. Moc Nhien woke up exhausted, her whole body aching. At the foot of the bed he was sitting watching TV, but there was a banned movie. The most shocking thing was the two main characters, she and him. So comfortable. She lay under his body, panting violently. Moc Nhien ignored the pain in her body. She rushed towards him and snatched the remote from his hand. But she was not his opponent, he knew from the moment she woke up. Han Thien Lan, you are a bastard, despicable, shameless. Han Thien Lan looked at her with cold eyes. As miserable as loving your sister's future husband? As shameless as pretending to be your sister to marry me? As shameless as selling your body to marry me? Money? If it weren't for you, would I have to do those shameless things? She said indignantly. Moc Nhien looked straight into his eyes. You always said I was disgusting, despicable, dirty, so why did you keep me by your side? If it was only to torture and avenge my sister, you would have done it, because now I regret it. I regret pretending to be my sister and marrying you. She said things contrary to her heart. Han Thien Lan smiled. Calm down a bit. Let's see how you begged me to come inside you last night. Chapter 9. Humiliation to the extreme. Look at how flirtatious, lustful, and dirty she is in that recording. Moc Nhien said in a broken voice. I've lost to you. I've lost to my own fate. You can do whatever you want, it's up to you. Don't talk like that to me. You better listen to me and act as a substitute until she comes back. Then he gave her the remote. If you have time, let's watch it again, it's very interesting. Then he walked towards the locker, holding a wad of money. This is your money. He accidentally threw it at her. Moc Nhien turned off the movie playing on TV. She hugged the blanket and sobbed. What did she do wrong? Why was her fate so miserable? By now she should have gone to America to pursue her passion. But everything went wrong from the day he came to her house. Moc Nhien Nhi quickly changed clothes and went to the company. She is his second secretary. From now on, she will take on the position of mistress. The most ironic thing is that from now on, wife and lover will live together in this villa. Han Thien Lan had gone to work. The housekeeper immediately went up to the room with Moc Nhien. She opened the door and saw her sobbing and said pityingly, "Tiu Nhien, stop crying, get up and have breakfast." Moc Nhien heard her voice and wiped away her tears. From the day she met her, she saw that she was better than her own mother. Moc Nhien took off the blanket. The housekeeper looked at the bruises on her neck and then at her red, swollen eyes from crying so much that she understood what was going on. She supported her weak body. "Don't be shy. Let me take you to take a bath. You need to eat properly to be healthy." Moc Nhien slowly walked into the bathroom. The pain below made it difficult for her to move. The housekeeper put her clothes on, she helped her comb her hair and then went downstairs to get her food. She cooked her some lotus seed porridge and a cup of milk. Moc Nhien tried to eat half a bowl of porridge and then drank a cup of milk. The housekeeper took a blister of medicine and gave it to her. "Tiu Nhien, this is a tonic. Please take one pill." Moc Nhien took a pill and said, "Uncle, I want to rest a bit." Okay, then just rest." Moc Nhien took a nap until noon. Her body felt better. Moc Nhien immediately took some paper and pen and went downstairs. "Tiu Nhien, are you going anywhere else?" Moc Nhien shook her head. "I'm going to the garden to sit and enjoy the breeze for a while." She didn't dare go out casually anymore. She was too scared last night. She didn't want to involve anyone else. "Yes. Remember to pay attention to your health." Moc Nhien didn't say anything, turned around and walked out to the flower garden behind the villa. There are many roses planted here. But these are not her favorite flowers. She likes white chrysanthemums. I also don't understand why a girl like her has a special interest in white chrysanthemums. Maybe it's because of this strange hobby that she has no friends. Moc Nhien put her pencil down on the paper, but now her mind was empty, with no ideas at all. She sighed and suddenly drew a birdcage, in which was locked a ringed bird. It was very similar to her now. She is this ringed bird. This villa is a cage. She can only struggle in vain here. At this moment, her phone rang. She had never had friends before, so she never called anyone. When the phone rang, it could only be her father or mother. As she guessed, it was her mother. Moc Nhien gently answered the phone. "Little girl, do you think you can really become Mrs. Han? You should remember that this is your sister's place. Don't dream about it. Quickly send money here. Support you for 20 years. You can continue, so why leave?" Moc Nhien smiled bitterly. This was her biological mother. "Is 5,000 not enough effort for the two of you to raise me? You should remember that for the past 20 years I have lived a miserable life, lacking everything. I'm afraid 5,000, 10,000, there's more left over. You dare to be so rude today? I was able to become Han Thien Lan's wife and get married, right? It's all thanks to your sister, you should remember." Moc Nhien shook her head. "Everything you guys gave me, I will not forget, definitely will not forget." Her eyes became stubborn and she coldly hung up. Moc Nhien raised her head to look at that vast blue sky to swallow the tears that flowed back inside. She smiled, a smile that was even more unsightly than when she cried, because it contained so much bitterness and pain that a girl could not see. "A weak girl like you has to accept it." She threw the phone away. A bunch of cold-blooded people, she hated them all. "Oh my God, deep Moc Nhien, have I offended you?" This was the first time in 20 years that she blamed God, because before she thought that perhaps she was not as good as her sister. Holding her face and crying for a while, she regained composure. Moc Nhien carried her things into the house. It was almost dark. At this time, Han Thien Lan and Moc Nhien Nhi got out of the car and went into the house together. Young master, you're back. The maid bowed her head in greeting. He coldly went upstairs. Moc Nhien Nhi looked at the maid. Are you guys blind? Can't you see me? What a bunch of stupid people. Moc Nhien Nhi glared at them while speaking. The rice was served. Moc Nhien calmly sat down to eat. Hey Deep Moc Nhien, can you stand up? I saw you while eating and I couldn't swallow. The housekeeper now walked towards the dining table. I hope Miss Nook will sympathize. I think you are the one who needs to stand up. She is the lady of this house. Moc Nhien shook her head at the housekeeper, telling her to stay silent. This story sounds good and interesting at the same time. There are some passages where the author writes a bit rough description of the two people. If you don't like it, please scroll past it. Chapter 10. Going on a business trip to America at this time, Han Thien Lan came down. He coldly said, "Who dares to say that she is the wife of this house? Housekeeper, do you dare to go against me? The wife of this house is Deep Moc Van, the twin sister of this despicable woman, Deep Moc Nhien." Moc Nhien's shoulders trembled slightly. He insulted her again. Moc Nhien stood up. I've finished eating, everyone can eat. Stop, he continued. Do you think you're a lady? Standing here waiting for Moc Nhien Nhi to finish eating and then cleaning up for her. No one can help her. He walked closer to her. I really look forward to what despicable trick you will use next to chase her away. After saying that, he coldly went out and quickly the Lamborghini car left the villa. Moc Nhien stood next to her, looking at Moc Nhien Nhi's arrogant face. She could only stay silent. The maids here were very merciful to her, but no one dared to go against the young master's orders. Han Thien Lan drove to the most luxurious bar in the city, the Fantasy Bar. He gave the key to the security guard and went inside. Hak Bok Lam, his best friend since childhood, he has a very handsome face, is flirtatious, funny and extremely talkative. If there were 10 girls, all 10 of them would be fascinated by his talent. His words. Together, he and I are leaders in the underground organization and are the general managers of 2 large corporations. Already here? Why are you in such a good mood today that you invited me out here? Ah, it must be fun to marry your fiancé's sister. Han Thien Lan smiled coldly. Stop teasing me, luckily that part is a little longer. No matter how old this guy is, you may not be able to match him. He scowled and said, his technique and size are recognized by all the women who have been with him. If they were with him, they would die of joy. Han Thien Lan poured himself a glass of wine. Can you find someone for me? I think there's something very unusual about this Deep Moc Van. She's not as gentle as you think. Han Thien Lan stubbornly said. I know what she is like, you don't have to doubt anything. Anyway, I see something shady about her. Han Thien Lan pulled out the pistol from behind him. I told you not to doubt her. Shoot if you're good, why would you assassinate me because of a woman? Fuck. Black White Lamb said. Han Thien Lan took back the gun. Try to find her for me. Lately, his feelings were very different. Seeing that woman cry made him feel a little sad. But he still intentionally hurt her. After drinking until late at night, he was so drunk that he didn't know what was happening, so he had to let someone else take him home. Hak Bok Lam was no different. Everyone had gone to bed, only the butler and she were still awake. The butler saw him and quickly helped. Young master, why are you so drunk? Seeing that, Moc Nhien immediately helped her take him to the room. It was very difficult for 2 people with weak arms and legs to bring him into the room. Han Thien Lan was drunk but still mumbling. Moc Van, where have you gone? Why haven't you come back yet? You gave me the motivation to live on in the past, why do you take that motivation away now? Come back to me. Moc Nhien's heart somehow ached because of his words. Why? Probably because he sees her as a substitute, sees her as a commodity. When she was about to step out of the room, she heard him say something. Moc Van, I will definitely avenge you. When I finish torturing Deep Moc Nhien, you will come back, right? Moc Nhien smiled bitterly. Very good. Then he had to try to think of a way to torture her worse. Moc Nhien went back to her room to sleep until tomorrow morning. At this time, the door to the room was kicked open by a strong force and Han Thien Lan walked in. Deep Moc Nhien, quickly get up and pack your clothes and come with me on a business trip. Moc Nhien knew he usually didn't have patience with her, so she quickly calmed down. Moc Nhien Nhi came in. Mr. Han, I think it's better if a secretary like me comes with this. The company's president is Han Thien Lan. Whoever I want to go will go. Do you have the right to decide? Seeing him like that, Moc Nhien Nhi didn't dare to say anything anymore. She felt angry and walked out. Moc Nhien walked into the bathroom to personal hygiene and then folded clothes. The butler went up to her room and said, Tiu Nhien, there's no need anymore. The young master's things have been prepared for someone. I just need you to leave. When Moc Nhien heard that, she only brought paper and colored pens. These are her best friends. Without them, she would be very sad. He and she went to the airport, this time on business in the US. There was something important and it was convenient for him to visit the company's branch. When Moc Nhien first came to the airport, seeing how spacious it was, she opened her eyes wide and excitedly looked at them. This time, go to America to find your sister. If you can't find her, don't come back. Moc Nhien smiled and gently said, she is no longer there anymore. You know where she is? Moc Nhien nodded. Yes, but I won't tell you. It took a lot of effort for me to climb to the position of Mrs. Han. Do you think I will give up easily? Han Thien Lan coldly squeezed her neck. Deep Moc Nhien, don't touch my final limit. The one with no body will be you. Chapter 11. Jobs in America. Moc Nhien frowned in pain. The people at the airport looked at them in confusion. He regained his angry expression and let her go. The plane took off and it took them 12 hours to get to America. An official vehicle quickly parked in front of the airport. A politely dressed man in his 40s accompanied by another person came to pick him up. Mr. Han, hello, is this your wife? Han Thien Lan smiled coldly. My lover went on a business trip for a few days, then when I got back, I left. Moc Nhien bit her lip to endure the humiliation. Hearing that, the two of them stopped flattering and respecting her. They got in the car and went back to the company. His company's branches expanded to 10 countries, large and small, and developed on par with the parent company. This is the reason why his money could not be spent in 10 lifetimes. Moc Nhien sat in the back of the car with him. Above were the two people just now. The car stopped in front of the company. Han Thien Lan looked at Moc Nhien tiredly, frowned, and said, get rid of this look of yours. General Han, go this way. The other person said. Moc Nhien gently followed. This company is just a branch, but it is so big, the parent company must be very large in scale. Everyone went into the meeting room, but she had to sit outside and wait. A secretary brought her a cup of coffee. Miss, your coffee. Moc Nhien smiled and accepted. Thank you. Inside the meeting room, everyone was discussing a new project. He sat in the highest position and listened to each report. When working, he was always a public and private person, always serious and decisive. It was difficult for anyone to surpass him. Your eyes. The meeting lasted 2 hours. Moc Nhien seemed to have no more energy. She went to bed late at night. Today she had to sit on a plane for 12 hours. Now she has to wait another 2 hours for him. The door opened. Han Thien Lan coldly walked towards her. Let's go. Moc Nhien stood up and followed him. Where are you going? Do you have the right to ask me? Shut your mouth. Next to me it's best not to open your mouth. Because that clear voice from the first time he heard it, he thought she was a gentle person, but he didn't expect her to be a cruel person. Moc Nhien smiled bitterly and remained silent. He drove a Ferrari to the hotel, where their belongings were delivered. His room is room 407, her room is room 408. Moc Nhien walked into the bathroom, washed up and went out, really tired. Han Thien Lan picked up the phone to call hotel service. Bring a special meal to room 408. After saying that, he hung up the phone and walked out. He drove to the Ung Then Bang organization. It was very late but the place was still full of people. Seeing him enter, everyone immediately stood up to greet him. Boss. Han Thien Lan coldly walked towards the highest chair and sat down. One person quickly stood up and said, Boss. The two old men of Bango Emperor want to cooperate with us on that smuggled goods, but their request is too unreasonable, so we are still waiting for the boss's decision. Those two old men have been alive for a long time. Let's use this time to free those two old men. His English tone is neither hot nor cold. They looked at each other. Knowing from the beginning what the boss meant, he was a cold and cruel person, everyone understood this. Han Thien Lan stood up to leave, he drove on the highway. Suddenly in front of him appeared a familiar figure that looked like Moc Van, because her hair was different from Moc Nhien. Moc Van. Moc Van. He unfastened his seatbelt, got out of the car and called her name. But when he got out of the car, he couldn't see her anymore. He took out his phone and called Hak Bok Lam. Can you check for me if Moc Van has exit papers to go to America? No. One word at a time and then hung up. He kicked the car hard as if to vent his temper, then went to a bar to drink. The music was loud but it didn't affect the cold man sitting in the corner drinking wine. He drank one glass after another. An image appeared in his mind of 3 years ago. That girl gave him a letter, thanks to which he was able to continue to live well and continue his parents' career, but now she leave me. But little did he know that the person he loved for 3 years was not the cunning Deep Moc Van but Deep Moc Nhien. Handsome guy, are you sitting here drinking alone? A girl with a short dress, revealing half of her round breasts. Han Thien Lan drank another glass and said coldly, go away. What's wrong? Or let me help you relieve it. I don't need money. I just need technique and size. He frowned. I told you to go away. What makes you so hot? Are you impotent? The woman stood up and said. He pulled out a pistol and aimed it at her head. Dang! Everyone screamed when they heard this sound. All eyes turned to him. The woman who had just been lying on the ground opened her eyes. There was a small hole in the middle of her forehead. Han Thien Lan put the gun away and laughed coldly, stupid woman. He drove back to the hotel and the security guard opened the car door for him and spoke respectfully. General Han. Where are you staying so late? Han Thien Lan gave the key to the security guard, did not answer him but walked straight inside. He did not go back to his room but went through Moc Nhien's room. Knock, knock, knock. He knocked repeatedly on the door. Moc Nhien, who was sleeping on the bed, covered her ears in discomfort, but he had no intention of stopping. Deep Moc Nhien. Please open the door quickly, don't blame me. Moc Nhien heard his voice. Even though she was sleepy, she quickly woke up. She staggered to open the door for him. The door opened and he hugged her completely, then closed the door. She was the one who made Moc Van leave him, had to torture her, and avenge Moc Van. But he didn't know that that wasn't the real reason. Chapter 12. Physical pain. He quickly sucked her red lips. Moc Nhien was still sleepy, she had difficulty receiving his strong kiss. His tongue searched inside her mouth, the smell of alcohol lingering in his mouth created a dark breath. Han Thien Lan accidentally looked into her eyes. The hatred in his heart rose even more. He wrestled her down to the floor, then bowed his head and bit her neck hard. Moc Nhien frowned and pushed him away. Ah, it hurts, Han Thien Lan, you're crazy. He tore her nightgown, followed by her underwear. Moc Nhien weakly protested. He squeezed her chin. I brought you here to satisfy me, you have no right to refuse. A tear appeared in the corner of her eye. She asked, do you only see me as a tool to satisfy you and a substitute? Besides those uses, can you do anything else? She closed her eyes in despair. Han Thien Lan could no longer think of anything else. He only knew that he wanted her very much right now. He quickly took off his suit and entered her. Every time, without any foreplay, he just put that big thing straight in. Moc Nhien clenched her hands tightly, her nails digging into her palms until it was painful, but not as painful as her bottom right now. It hurts so much. Please. Please get out. He ignored her words, just going in and out like a storm. Tears fell freely from her eyes. It was so painful. After being crazy for a while, honey secreted inside her vagina. At this time, he could move in and out more easily, but the pain was still evident. Ah, it hurts so much. She clutched his shoulder tightly. Han Thien Lan rubbed her face, wiping away her tears. Moc Van, what's wrong with you? Is it painful? I'm sorry. As he spoke, he eased his force into and out of her. Moc Nhien smiled bitterly. She would rather be trampled and tortured by him, but she was still her, still deep Moc Nhien. She didn't want him to consider her sister, so he would be so gentle with her. I'm not deep Moc Van, she said desperately. The hand that was rubbing her face suddenly stiffened. He heard her say that and grabbed her neck. Deep Moc Nhien. You despicable woman. He went in and out more intensely. Moc Nhien screamed hoarsely. Ah, it hurts. Ah. He stopped, coldly pulled out 5 needles, and without any mercy threw her onto the big bed. He picked up his tie and belt from the floor. Han Thien Lan, consider me begging you, please let me go. He smiled coldly and tied her hands. Moc Nhien said, what do you want to do? Let me go quickly. You will definitely like this. He used a belt to tie one of her legs up high, his posture making her private area humiliatingly visible. Please, don't be like that, she said desperately. He stepped onto the bed, held one of her legs, and brought his little brother in again. Ah, it hurts. Ah. Moc Nhien was speechless. He still continued to attack vigorously. Each time he entered, he reached her deepest place. Huh. He breathed heavily. Moc Nhien endured his torment all night long. When he ejected his semen, there was also a bit of blood underneath. He frowned at her fainting under him, his hand unconsciously touching her face. He was afraid of this action of his own, quickly got out of bed and went to the bathroom. After showering, he picked up the landline phone to call the hotel staff. Bring birth control pills to room 408 for me, as quickly as possible. Not long after that, someone knocked on the door and he opened it for them. A hotel doctor held a bottle of medicine and gave it to him. General Han, this medicine has very high side effects, you should not use it too much. It may become ineffective in the future. Han Thien Lan coldly interrupted, can you care? Just do your job well. After saying that, he slammed the door, walked to where she was lying. Looking at her small sleeping face, he suddenly felt a little pity. He walked over and put a pill in her mouth, helped her sit up to take the pill. The medicine drifted down and then coldly walked out of the room. Morning. Moc Nhien woke up with pain all over her body and a burning pain underneath. She tried to drag her tired body to the bathroom. She threw herself into the bathtub to wipe away the foul smell on her body. He was truly a dangerous lion. She had no way to fight back except to submit and not know what else to do. She wore a white shirt with a flared skirt, her hair was soaked in water and completely wet. Moc Nhien gathered the clothes on the floor and put them in the trash can. At this moment, the door opened and a man in black came. "Miss, young Master Han sent me to pick you up. Please come with me on a trip." Moc Nhien nodded and followed that person. Today she had to wear flat shoes because the middle of her foot hurt so much that she couldn't close it. They arrived at the place where there was a yacht. She was taken by the other person onto the yacht and into the first-class cabin where he was sitting. Han Thien Lan was sitting with two big-bellied old men, around 50 years old, but with very cunning faces. Behind him are his subordinates standing. "Come here." He looked at her. His thin lips slightly opened. Chapter 13. Easy agreeing. Moc Nhien slowly walked towards him. She sat down next to him. From the moment she appeared, the eyes of the two old men sitting next to her brightened even more. "You two. Decide quickly. Han Thien Lan and I have never liked waiting." One of the two old men said. "I know you've always been strict with your work. But this time your side doesn't need to do much to still make a profit. Don't you agree? Profit and the fact that I work hard have nothing to do with each other. So let's go 7-3. I'll be on your side." The two looked at each other and smiled. "Then I've given you too much. That's it. I'm 6, you're 4. That's the only reason why you want to cooperate with me. You two are actually only older than me in age, the rest are all behind me." Han Thien Lan said, then looked at her sitting next to her. "Pour wine." Moc Nhien raised her head and looked around. There was no one here who was a waiter. Was he talking about her? Moc Nhien looked at him. His eyes were so sharp that she trembled and picked up the bottle of wine placed on the table. "Haven't you ever seen people serving? Do business properly. I called you here to pour wine, not to sit and watch." Her shoulders trembled slightly. Moc Nhien knelt on the ground and lifted the bottle of wine to pour into his glass. He lifted the glass of wine. "Pour wine for Mr. Fuang and Mr. Loi too." A man smiled evilly. "That's it. I'm 5. You're 5. That's enough, as long as this woman lets us enjoy it for one night." After hearing this, Moc Nhien looked at him in panic and asked for help. Han Thien Lan smiled coldly. "It's up to you." Then he coldly stood up. Moc Nhien sat down in despair. Did he see her as a tool to make money? An old man walked up to her. "Come on baby, get up. Let's have fun together tonight." Then he caressed her face. Moc Nhien frowned and pushed his hand away. "Get away." Another person gently touched her shoulder. "Be good, let us love you. You will have more money." Han Thien Lan walked to the door. He stopped and turned back, looking at the weak woman being approached by two old men. He pulled out the pistol from behind his back and aimed at one old man. Dang! The man caressing her face suddenly fell to the ground. His eyes opened, the bullet hit her heart. The man still looked at him in panic. You already agreed, but are you planning to betray?" He raised the gun at the old man. "A bunch of stupid people. I Han Thien Lan have never done anything less than beneficial to myself. Not only do you intend to take advantage of me, you even want to take advantage of my women. Your Majesty, please carry out your shipment. Don't. Please, I was wrong. Please spare my life." Moc Nhien stepped back, away from the man lying on the ground. He once again killed someone. Dang! The man screamed and fell to the ground. Moc Nhien covered his mouth. These two people were talking just now, still sitting here, and in the blink of an eye they were killed. Han Thien Lan put the gun away. He looked at her. "Let's go." But Moc Nhien was still in a panic. The pain below, combined with this, made her legs weak and unable to stand up. Han Thien Lan walked towards her. "Deep Moc Nhien, don't let me repeat what I said a second time." Moc Nhien tried to calm her mind. She grabbed the chair to stand up. But these legs seemed to no longer belong to her. She took small, difficult steps. He frowned and picked her up. Moc Nhien screamed in surprise and quickly clung to his neck. His subordinates behind him were surprised but still had to keep a cold face. He walked straight forward. Moc Nhien looked into his eyes. This was the first time she looked at him at such a close distance. This action made her feel a little warm. She leaned her head on his chest to hide her emotions. "You're present." Han Thien Lan carried her to the car, put her in the driver's seat and looked at the subordinates behind. "I flew back this afternoon. No need to see her off anymore. Things here will just be done." "Yes," the subordinates said in unison. "He has led them for 3 years. These are his loyal subordinates. They have been carefully trained by him. Their skills and martial arts, even shooting, is something he trained. Then he divided them into 2 groups to rule, an underground force in China led by him and Black-White Lamb. A force in America led by his closest subordinates." Moc Nhien looked at them. He got in the car and went straight to the hotel. Tips, tits, tits. At this moment, his phone rang. Hak Bok Lam called. He pressed the button next to the steering wheel and put on his headphones. "What's going on?" "Your Deep Moc Van didn't go to America. Her exit papers to France were fake. I think another force helped her escape from you. Hayes, when someone no longer loves her then." Hearing this, he coldly cut off the phone and threw away the headphones. Next to Moc Nhien. He was afraid and didn't even dare to breathe. He was angry again. "Deep Moc Nhien, please tell me where your sister is, okay?" he asked. When Moc Nhien heard him speak, the corner of her mouth raised and her eyes lowered. Chapter 14. A chance meeting. "Do you think I will tell you? I have worked hard to gain the status of Mrs. Han. Do you think it will be easy for me to tell?" she said. Han Thien Lan stopped the car and looked at her. "Do you want to be Mrs. Han? Okay, you are already Mrs. Han. I will give you as much money as you want, just tell me where Moc Van is." Moc Nhien smiled bitterly, letting him think she was a person who wanted glory. But he didn't know that what she really needed was freedom. How could she know where Moc Van was? "I do not know." Han Thien Lan lifted her face. He suddenly squeezed her chin. "Deep Moc Nhien. Don't lie. Why would a cunning, cruel, lying woman share the same blood as Moc Van? Right? That's the question I'm wondering too." She ignored the pain and looked straight into his eyes. Han Thien Lan looked at her stubborn eyes and became even angrier, but just now he mercifully carried her to the car. He coldly pushed her away. Moc Nhien almost hit her head on the car window. "Deep Moc Nhien, if you don't tell me where your sister is, you will be the one suffering in the future." Moc Nhien smiled. "Okay, I'm ready to wait." After saying that, she leaned her head against the car seat, closed her eyes, clenched her hands. She was so tired. Truly living next to him was like hell on earth. Their luggage was delivered to the airport. Han Thien Lan gave the car back to the company director. He and she entered the airport. Moc Nhien had difficulty following him. Her lower body was still very sore. They boarded the plane. 30 minutes later the plane took off back to China. Moc Nhien looked out the window. A gun was placed right on her temple. Moc Nhien turned away in panic. "Deep Moc Nhien. You are an evil person who dares to steal your sister's happiness. People like you should have died a long time ago," Han Thien Lan coldly told her. His eyes would almost tear her into a million pieces. Moc Nhien stepped back. "Han Thien Lan, you are truly a cruel person, treating people's lives like trash. Is it as cruel as you?" Han Thien Lan moved the gun to her neck. He laughed coldly. "Deep Moc Nhien, I will take revenge for Moc Van. You go and die." "No, don't. Please." His fingers moved slightly. Bang! A loud sound came out. "Ah!" Moc Nhien quickly opened her eyes, sweating profusely. It turned out she was dreaming. Han Thien Lan looked at her contemptuously. If you have the courage to be by my side, you shouldn't be afraid of anything, except me. Moc Nhien wiped her sweat. The dream was too scary. As if she was about to be really killed by him. She got up and went to the bathroom. When she was about to enter the bathroom, she met a man and a woman coming out. Moc Nhien moved out of the way to the right but unfortunately bumped into the man's shoulder. Ah, sorry, I didn't mean it. She bowed her head and said. The woman pulled the man aside. What are you doing? Do you want to take advantage? The man in front was about 25 years old. He was wearing a dark blue suit. His hair was the color of red wine. Looking at Moc Nhien with interest, he was the general manager of the Maison fashion group, Li Thien Vy. Next to him is his biological sister and the model representing his company, Li Huyen Du. It's okay, no need to apologize anymore. He put his hands in his pockets and said. Moc Nhien smiled. Then let me go first. He looked at her small face and was a little shaken. Her eyes seemed to contain a lot of hurt and sadness. Only then did Moc Nhien notice the woman. On her was a dress she designed that she intended to go to America to compete in. But it was stolen by Moc Van. This dress is so perfect and beautiful. Moc Nhien looked at the dress with regretful eyes. Miss, are you okay? Moc Nhien realized she was losing her temper, so she quickly regained composure. She looked at Li Thien Vy. May I ask, where did you buy this dress? Buy what? Do you think this dress is sold on the market? This is the design that won first prize in a fashion design contest in America. My brother bought it and made it for me. Tell me. I heard this will be a product of my brother's company. The dress I'm wearing right now is a limited edition. There's only this one. The woman next to her spoke. Li Thien Vy pulled her back. Be quiet. Did your design receive first prize? That's great, but after receiving the award, your sister should have returned. So why isn't there yet? Moc Nhien ignored her thoughts. Looked at the dress and said, if I plan to bring this product to market, I think I should remove the pattern on the skirt. It will be more harmonious. Moc Van was also stupid. He went and drew a few more motifs here, but fortunately he still won first prize. Li Thien Vy looked at the dress and nodded. At first I thought the pattern wasn't quite right. You're also really good. Miss, are you a fashion designer? Moc Nhien smiled, her smile gently revealing her dimples. Li Thien Vy suddenly froze. She walked past the two of them and went to the bathroom. This is her design. She of course knows what is right and what is not. Li Thien Vy turned to look at her small back. Her body was small. Her long silky hair reaching her waist made her even weaker. He really hoped that he and her would have the chance to meet again. Chapter 15. A little gentle Moc Nhien went to the bathroom. Unfortunately for her, her aunt came to visit today. Because she had something to do this morning, she forgot. Moc Nhien sat inside the room holding her stomach. What should I do now? Everything was in her luggage. The plane was still 6 hours away. How could she leave it out like that? Han Thien Lan sat for a long time. Seeing that she still hadn't come out, he felt a bit uncomfortable, so he got up and went to the bathroom. Deep Moc Nhien, why don't you go in there and try to sleep? Moc Nhien frowned. What should I do now? She bit her lip, her stomach hurt so much. Are you in there? Han Thien Lan asked again. Moc Nhien replied in a low voice. I'm inside. Get out. What are you doing in there for so long? Moc Nhien opened the door and walked out. She walked slowly step by step. Han Thien Lan looked at her and saw that her face was not okay and asked. What's wrong with you? Moc Nhien bit her lip. Should she say it? Finally she decided. Today, my aunt came. After saying that, she blushed and lowered her head. Women are so annoying. He frowned and said, is this why you stay inside and refuse to go out? Moc Nhien nodded. He turned around in disgust and left. Moc Nhien didn't know what to do. She stood next to the handwashing station thinking. A moment later, hurry up and get out. He now walked in, holding a package of sanitary napkins and disposable cotton underwear in his hand, and gave it to her. Moc Nhien suddenly looked at him. Where did the noble Han Thien Lan get this to give to her? Deep Moc Nhien. He called her back to reality. Moc Nhien quickly took it and walked into the room. He still looked at her with a disgusted look and then went to his chair. 5 minutes later, Moc Nhien went out, her hand placed on her stomach. Every time the red light came, her stomach hurt like it was about to explode. She sat down in her seat in first class. Most coincidentally, behind their seats are Li Thien Vy and Li Huyen Du. She sat down. At this moment Li Thien V's eyes met her. Is blood loss different? You look like a ghost. He looked at her, his voice sarcastic. Moc Nhien temporarily refused to accept him, because he had helped her just now, so she was a little grateful, especially when he was a little gentle just now, making her heart pound. Li Thien Vy was still staring at her in front. Han Thien Lan looked at Moc Nhien holding her stomach and frowning, feeling a bit uncomfortable. He looked at the flight attendant. Give me a glass of warm water. Yes, please wait a moment. She speaks. A glass of warm water was brought out. Han Thien Lan pushed it towards her. Drink some water, it will ease the pain. You women are so troublesome. Moc Nhien picked up the glass of warm water, feeling a little warm inside even though his tone was not very friendly. Sitting for a while, she felt sleepy, so she fell asleep. The moment she accidentally leaned on his shoulder, he felt a bit stiff. Why didn't he push her away? She was the one who ruined his happiness, and yet he felt like he was sinking deeper and deeper inside, unable to get out. He softened a bit and sat still, letting her lean on his shoulder. This image also fell into Li Thien V's eyes, a bit lost but not very clear. When the plane landed, Moc Nhien woke up and realized she had fallen asleep leaning on his shoulder and felt a little guilty. This man usually hated and tortured her, hated her to no end, yet she could rely on him. I can sleep on your shoulder. Luckily he was asleep, but he just pretended. When he knew she was awake he closed his eyes. Secretary Hoang drove to the airport to pick him up. The luggage was pushed out by the staff and put in the car. He and she sat in the back seat. He didn't say anything along the way, just closed his eyes and leaned back in the chair. Moc Nhien gently observed him. Long curled hair, high nose, thin lips, slightly dark skin. He was truly the ideal model for thousands of women. Mr. Han. This afternoon an important partner is coming. Should you go home first or go to the company? Secretary Hoang looked into the glass on the car and asked carefully. He still didn't open his eyes and just said, go to the company. Yes. Moc Nhien looked at him. Just got back from the plane and already has to work? But he looked tired. Not resting but having to work. The car stopped in front of the villa. Moc Nhien got out of the car. The servant took the luggage and went into the house. The car continued to roll to the company. Thinh Hong Group, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. He just took a nap and rested for a while and it was time for the meeting. You haven't come yet? He sat in the highest chair and asked Secretary Hoang, his hand resting on his forehead, eyes slightly closed. Secretary Hoang said, Mr. Han, Mr. Li just called and said he was stuck in traffic and will arrive a little later. You guys are tired of living, give them 3 more minutes, I don't like waiting. Secretary Hoang bowed his head. Yes. 2 minutes 40 seconds later. Sorry, I'm late. I was rude when we first met. Li Thien Vy and Li Huyen Du walked in. He still looked the same as before and said, it seems that Mr. Li's sincerity is too great. Mr. Han, I'm sorry, it's my first time returning to China. I'm a little unfamiliar. And there's also a traffic jam. Han Thien Lan then put his hand down and raised his head to look at them. I hope this is the last time we talk about these things. Of course. I will pay attention, Li Thien Vy said. Only now did Li Huyandu see his face. The man in front was really attractive. She was a bit confused with him. I would like to introduce to everyone. I am the General Director of Maison Fashion Group. In the near future we want to cooperate with Thinh Hong for mutual benefit. Next, I would like to introduce the representative model of my company is Li Huyandu. Li Huyandu looked at him and smiled seductively. Han Thien Lan said, "Why did you bring a representative model to such an important meeting? Models will eventually expire. Only this contract, once signed, will last forever." Li Huyandu was angry because of his words, but there was nothing he could do.